Hello friends, I welcome you to my YouTube channel Data Mantra. In today's discussion, we will discuss about pivot tables. In this session, in pivot tables, we will discuss about the prerequisite for a pivot tables and changing the layout of pivot tables, group by analysis on dates without changing our source data, and then group by analysis on numbers on pivot tables. So let's start our session and jump into the Excel. So friend, this is my Excel data which I will use for creating pivot tables. It has columns like date, store, four stores are there in this data. As you can see, the other fields are like bill number, customer name, and taxable amount, net amount. These kind of the fields which will be using pivot tables. So before we create our pivot tables, we must keep in mind what kind of data structure we have. Our data for pivot table must be in a tabular format. Just like this is a tabular format data. There should be no blank headers in this data. And further, if there is any blank rows, that will also create problems. So there should be no complete blank rows. So before you create your first pivot table, please keep in mind that this checklist is completed, and after that you can start creating your pivot tables. So to create a pivot table, you can go on Insert tab and click on Pivot Tables. So I'm clicking on Pivot Tables. The pivot table create wizard has taken a range automatically. But if you notice carefully, this is a hard coded table, just like 2215 is the last cell which this data contains. If in future your data expanded, that pivot table will not cover that data. So before we go ahead, we should tackle this here only. So you can just handle this issue in two ways. First, you should include your complete range of cells, complete columns, and then create a pivot table. Or the best way is to create a tables format it as a tables. So I'm going on this later options. I'm creating it as a tables. You can just go on home tab and click on format as table, and you can take any of these formats to create a table. So now it is asking for the range, and there is a checkbox, my table has a header. You should keep it checked and click on it. Now, as you can see that this data is converted into a table, and this table has a name table 1. We will change it to a familiar name for this table, and bear in mind that table name cannot have spaces. So I am giving it a name as sales data. Fine. Enter. Now I can insert pivot tables just by going on Insert tab and Pivot Tables. Now you can see that now my source data is sales data, and if your data is expanded further, it will be included in pivot table. So I have clicked on OK. Now as you can see that this is our window for creating pivot tables. It has a name of fields, then it has filter area, and columns area, and rows area. What these areas are, I will discuss these things. Columns area, anything you put in this area, it will appears here in as columns. Just like I am showing you one thing, I have inserted let's say store in columns. So you can see that stores are now our columns. and rows. So which data you want to make part of your rows, it will be appearing here. Let's say I want to make customers as rows. So these are my customers now appearing under rows. And now this is the value data. So what kind of summation you want to do here? Let's say I am taking net amount in the summation field. When you put any field here, you must check what kind of aggregation our pivot table is doing here. Currently it is showing sum of net amount. You can check by clicking on this drop down. If you want to make changes here, you can just click on value field setting. And if you want to do any other aggregation, you can do it here by changing whether it is sum or count. I am taking sum as we want sum of our total sales. Now as you can see that my customers are appearing row wise and store are appearing column wise. Now let us say we want to insert our, before going further, let me tell you something about subtotals and changing the layout of our table. Let's say I inserted store as in rows. Now you can see that there are some subtotals appearing in my tables. Here you can see that store A has this much of total sales, store B has this much of total sales. Now there are options how these subtotals should appear. If you go on to design tab, you can see subtotals. If you want to see subtotals, you can decide where it should appear, just like show all subtotal at bottom of group. Let's see what happened. Now subtotal are appearing after the details of store A are completed. And if you want to change it and want to make it at the start or at the top of the group, you can show just like this was the default option. And if you don't want these subtotal at all, you can click on do not show subtotals. Now there are no subtotals, only grand total is appearing. One thing. Now second thing is just like this is other kind of view. If you want to change the layout of your table, you can just click on report layout. And if you want to see it is in a tabular format, you can see now data is changed into tabular format. That's like the first column is having name of stores, second is having name of customers, and the last one is having net amount of sales. Now here also you can change the layout, just like these cells are blank. It means these figures belongs to store A and these figures belong to store B. Here you can play with these details. Let's just like there is an option in report layout, repeat all item labels. If you click on these thing, this option, it will be repeated on each rows. If you want it in this way, then you can just remove it. Fine. Do not repeat all item labels. And there is one more options. Let me show you on Analyze tab. This is one thing. Now let us say we want to include our dates and we want to work on dates. So I have included date field into columns. Now Excel automatically grouped this data into yearly numbers. Suppose I don't want to see it in yearly numbers. I want to see it as month wise grouping. So you need to click on this cell which is containing that year number and right click on it. And you will find one option of group. Now you can do grouping based on different thing. Just like it has now selected month, quarter and years. Suppose I don't want quarters and year, I just want only months. So you can click on month and the grouping will be done based on month. And if you want it to be done based on quarter, then you can do it quarter wise. Quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3. This is fine. Now let us say you want to see your grouping based on means a fixed number of days. Suppose 5 days interval. Then this can also be done in pivot table. Just click on group and click on days instead of quarters. And now here at bottom you will see number of days. It is asking you that how much number of days need to be clubbed together. Let's say we want to 5 days need to be clubbed together, and I clicked on OK. Now you can see it is now grouped day wise for 5 days. And if you want to see it in row wise, you can just drag into the rows area, and now your data is showing as grouped into 5 days bucket. You can also include other aggregation, just like I want to include total quantity sold, so I have included total quantity sold also. So this is the way you can work with pivot tables. There is another thing I want to discuss with you, ki how you can change the you can play with the numbers on pivot tables. Let us say take another example. I am showing you the data, and here there is a due date. Let's say what this due date means. This amount was sold on a particular date, and let's say we have a credit period of 3 months. So I have calculated the due date of that particular bill amount. So we want to see कि how much outstanding my bill is. So to do that, I am calculating days outstanding. In this column, days outstanding, I have calculated how much overdue my bill amount. So what this column contains is nothing but number of days post due date. How it is calculated is nothing but a simple formula. Let me calculate you again. I have taken today's date, means the date of reporting. You can have your own date also on which you want to calculate the days outstanding, and I have deducted the due date, and it will give me number of days outstanding since my overdue date. So these are my days overdue. So now let's go to our pivot tables and have a look at it. I am just removing this date field from here, and I have included there is one thing. I need to refresh my pivot, because as you can see due date is appearing here, but my inserted column for outstanding days is not appearing. So I need to refresh my table, pivot table. And as I refreshed, my days outstanding has appeared in my fields list. This is the benefit of having a source table in pivot tables. If it would be a normal range, I have to change my source data. But now, as my source data was as in Excel table, so I need not to do anything, and my data is refreshed properly. So now I have included this data into my rows, and now as you can see that days outstanding are appearing in C column. Now I am making little bit changes in my table. I want to make it as tabular format. So I will go on design tab and will click on report layout, and now I will click on repeat all item labels. Now it is in proper tabular format. Now what I have to do, I want to club days outstanding into buckets. So I will click on any cell of that particular field and right click on it, and then click on group. Now you can see that starting at 0 and ending at 431. So grouping will be done between this range. And let's say what would be my number of days on which it will be grouped by. So let's say I will take it as 5 days. So my grouping would be done on interval of 5 days, and you can see that grouping is appearing properly. 10 to 14 days, 30 to 34 days, kind of. It is now appearing properly. But let's say we don't want to go up to 10 days to 14 days and kind of that. I just want to see what is more than 180 days, and beyond that I will not go. So you just need to reach you need to change your settings, and let's say at ending point you need to enter your peak point up to which you don't want to see grouping. Let's say I have entered 180 days, and now I have clicked on OK. Now let's see what happens. Now all line items which were above 180 days will be grouped under one header, that is greater than 180 days, and below that every item will be grouped in a series of 1 to 5. So this is how we can do grouping. Otherwise, if you want to do this grouping using if formula, it will take lots of effort. But using pivot table, it can be done in simple clicks. So this is all I want to discuss in today's video. If you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe it and share it with your friends.